Well, these are always, I think, my favorite webinars because there's just so much to talk about anytime we've got new firmware.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the new firmware updates are great. And there's so much to cover when we do these major firmware releases. The 8.6, 8.3. I remember the 8.3 launch as just a game changer. Adding synergy mode and being able to show off. Basically bringing in legacy hardware and making it new again with a BR1 Mini 5G and the ability to just I don't know, the ability to just continually extend that infrastructure out and to see how much it's been used over the past couple of years to change how we build these dynamic networks.
Yeah, I think that's funny because that was such a like it was kind of a fringe concept when it launched, and now it's like it's just so automatic. People combine Peplink products all the time, and it's cool. Yeah, it's
It's just
just going
it's an
well.
expectation now. It was
Yep.
just a an idea or concept, and now it's become just an expectation. Oh, I got my balance 20x. I'm going to synergize that with a BR1 Mini 5G. Boom, done. And
Yep.
so it's just neat. And this is the next generation of this. The 8.6 is a huge game changing firmware on multiple levels, and I'm pretty excited to go over some of these features with everybody.
Yeah, and as usual on these webinars, like there's so much to dig into that you and I haven't even touched everything that's in these firmwares yet. I mean, we've been touching a lot of these different features, but there's just so much in here, and every time it seems like it's the same.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's get started because we have a bunch of people online and waiting. Today we have a great announcement here. We're on 8.6 beta 2. And so we're going to be talking about 8.6 firmware today, what to expect, new changes, and move forward with just show you what's in there. There are 27 pages of notes. But if you go to
Yeah, yeah.
settings, firmware management, and then we just hit show beta firmware, choose that 8.6 beta 2. I mean, we're going to cover stuff today, but you have this release notes and you click this release notes. I just want to show you this is not a tiny release. This is 30 pages of 30 pages of improvements, fixes, notes. I mean, that is it's more than I could cover in a single day if I were to go over each one of these features. And so what we did is we highlighted some of the major milestones, but it's also important at the very, very beginning. Peplink will tell you what devices supported. It'll also give you important notices right there. And then you're going to get these new features, and then improvements. New features and improvements are where you're going to see your changes. And then you're going to scroll down and look at this. I mean, we're at page 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's see where. There we go. So we're talking page 12 of this, and these are improvements. Then we're going to go to issues and resolved issues. And if you've ever put in a bug report, you'll see right there it says fixed 8.53S196 and 8.53S155, 8.53S170. So when you submit a feature or a bug, Peplink will give you a special build. And so you can search your firmware in this PDF and see if it's been applied. And so it's a great way to see what's changed or what's happening, what's been fixed in that firmware. But it's also important to note there are literally dozens, tens of, a lot of pages of improvements and features. And so as much as we're going to try to highlight today, I highly recommend checking the data sheet, downloading this release notes, and then I post all the updates on LinkedIn. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, when these firmware drop, I'll post updates to it. I'm kind of like I said, I apologize for going out of scope there, but I just wanted to
No,
show that off
I
real
think that's
fast.
great because, in the past, I think that documentation really reflects our commitment to listening to partners and listening to customers too. Because in the past, we didn't do a good job of providing those detailed notes and those comprehensive notes. And there are still things that maybe don't make it into these notes, but we really have put in a much bigger effort into making sure that that's all documented and clear, and we track, beta 1 to beta 2, and to me, I feel like we've done a much better job there. And yeah, it's almost 30 pages of documentation,
Yeah.
which is still just kind of scratching the surface on a lot of these features, but it's a great improvement, I think. So yeah, dig in and see what's in there, guys.
So last month we announced SpeedFusion Boost, and we showed off Starlink bonding with SpeedFusion Boost and increased performance capabilities. One thing I'm going to say is, as much as I love that this is highlighting Starlink, this works across anything. This is not just Starlink improvement. This is Starlink, 5G, OneWeb, Amazon Leo, even broadband providers. We are seeing customers get enhanced site-to-site connectivity improvements with SpeedFusion Boost. And this is disrupting a major, very expensive offering out there. Sort of like InTouch completely disrupted out-of-band management, offering it for free. SpeedFusion Boost is adding or improving upload and download resiliency and throughput, helping solve major challenges across lots of site-to-site data centers and 5G and Starlink and Leo, other Leo services. So, but we announced it last month. We were playing around with Gigabit Starlink, and now we get to tell you that you can play with it. This is an 8.6 beta. 8.6 beta 2 enabled it for the BR2 chipset, which is the first time we've ever been able to do that. So it's really neat to see that this is now available across the platforms, available on almost all the routers, and available for playing. And this dramatically increases diverse internet connection performance. So when we were talking about 5G and Starlink, or Starlink and Starlink, or Starlink and Leo bonding, we're now able to take these connections and really improve upload and download throughput from all of the lessons that we've learned over the last 3 years of working with Starlink.
On what's my efficiency and how fast does this work? And this is really closing that gap.
So to turn on SpeedFusion Boost, you can do this via the UI, SpeedFusion Boost, and just check the checkbox to turn it on. So that's going to be one way to turn this on in your SpeedFusion profiles. The other is should be available in control, either with Earth pretty soon here, but it is available in some of the test firmware. So, but the best way to test this right now is just when you're creating your profile to just enable SpeedFusion Boost and the UI. And so I've been playing around with that as well. And I don't want to say it's in control yet because I haven't checked Earth, but it is coming to in control if it's not already there.
Yeah, a couple of these features take synchronization from the in control side, and so as the beta process plays out, you will also see those start to show up. I think in the next week or two here, if not already in control. So a few of these things you may just have to go into the local UI to find them, but those will come in very shortly as well.
If you're a first responder, government employee, this is major announcement. If you're not, you might not care about this, but we are offering permanent FIPS 140-2 license activation on 8.6 beta, going into 8.6. I was promised this on firmware 9, and so I'm loving that we're going to see this on firmware 8.6. Peplink has spent a lot of investment in cryptographic chipsets and going through NIST and getting it approved. And we officially get to announce that we are now permanent FIPS license activation built right into your router. So if I pull up a router here, I can go into System and FIPS, and I can turn that on right there. So this is now just available to anybody that needs it. And so you can click the little question mark and see what we're doing here. But this is a requirement for cryptography for government hardware, and Peplink has now added this to our UI for free, no license activation needed. Yeah. Super cool.
It's just nobody does that, right? It's just
no.
permanent part of the firmware, not going away. Don't need a care plan to activate it. It's on. And
Yeah.
that's to us the biggest thing is like we can't offer a feature like that and have there be a chance that it could accidentally shut off on a customer, right? It has to be on, always there. And so to us, that's again just a commitment to our customers that we're going to make that available. And so yeah, it's really cool to see that. And I do
Heavily.
want to say too,
Oh,
140-3 is coming as well. So
yeah, I
that's
see it. Yeah. So in next firmware, we'll have 140-3 that's available or coming soon. But it's really nice to see that this is fully integrated into the 8.6 firmware. Um, Another really highly requested feature was WireGuard VPN. So if you look at this little box here, we have L2TP VPN with IPsec, PPTP VPN, Open VPN, and now we've added WireGuard VPN. We've had customers asking this probably, I'd say the last 2 years. I've been seeing feature requests trickle in for this capability. Really excited to announce 8.6 firmware. We're launching WireGuard VPN. So now we support OpenVPN or WireGuard VPN capabilities directly into the UI. There's no licensing. It's just built right in. And once again, if I go to my 580X here, I can just go to advanced and then scroll down to remote user access, enable remote user access settings, and there is my WireGuard VPN. You can choose which interfaces you want to listen on, and then
you
you
got a few
have your
interfaces there, Peter.
yeah, just a few, and then you have your your user accounts. So this will get built out just like OpenVPN, but it is building and growing. So it's really nice to see that they've added this in the beta. I expect to see um, different account authorization capabilities coming soon. Right now, if you notice, it's just local UI, whereas on OpenVPN, we've got a few extra options here. Where in WireGuard, it's just local accounts for right now. But it's still nice to see that Peplink is starting to add that into the beta firmware, and we can start providing Peplink some feedback on this. And it looks like you can even assign IPs. I have not played with this yet, so I'm an OpenVPN user, so I'm pretty excited to play with this.
Yeah, this is another one of those that you can just go to the forum and you can see everybody who's been asking for it, right? We do listen to the community. Sometimes it takes a little longer than we all want, but yeah, we are listening and people speaking up does help us get things done. So
Um, Really quick, I got some good questions here in the Q&A, so I'm gonna. Someone says historically with new releases, we've had this many fixes. How long does it take to get the stable release? We like to we try to release stable releases when it goes GA. These run for weeks. This is why we ask for feedback. This is why the public beta is open. Is to get user feedback, and so I push this out to my production in my office. I produce in our logistics building. I do not push it out to my data center. And then I push it out to all of our devices, like my BR2s, any of our work from home devices. We run it. That way we can start to collect feedback. So your feedback helps guide stability and capability. So if you're using special features, if you're using anything that's unique, boot this up in a lab and play with it, but don't put it into production yet. And this goes into someone else has, since it's a beta, would you recommend now or wait till the official? I recommend playing with it now if you have non-production environment, or if you are an IT and want to play with it in your office, controlled production environment like I do at my office. This gives you the ability to play with these features, make sure that it's stable, make sure there's no bugs. But if you're an end user, wait till it's production, and test it in your labs first. You should have a controlled lab where you're testing these features and capabilities. But if you're just have one device, if it's in your production and it's mission critical, let other people work that for you, right? Wait until it's GA. Make sure there's no special builds or immediate releases. And check the forums, forum.peplink, and look for any reported bugs as you do that. But we try to work through that as much as possible. Stability is really important to Peplink, and they've done a great job over the last couple of years releasing these early betas so that we can test the firmware before going GA.
Yeah, and again, the community, when you look at the posts for these beta releases, there's all kinds of people reporting this issue, that issue in the beta, so they're helping speed that turn up so we don't have to wait for a new firmware. It gets caught in the beta process instead. And so yeah, that feedback, that early testing is great. And you're right, Peter. It's if you've got customers paying, relying on your service, it is still a beta. So I would
Yep.
think twice before using it somewhere like that.
Chris asked the question, why isn't SpeedFusion on by default? The easy answer is backwards compatibility, right? Dynamic weighted bonding is far better than bonding, but we can't just push dynamic weighted bonding to customers that are using bonding as their default. So unfortunately, due to backwards compatibility and the fact that firmware can roll out differences, we can't just turn that on for you. We need you to turn that on. Otherwise, we could crash other users' networks, and that would not be cool. Um,
Yeah, it's a fine line for us to walk because it very often will result in better performance, but it's all at the end of the day, it's not our network, and so we didn't configure it and set it up in the first place, so we can't assume you want it on when a new feature comes out. So it's tricky, but new profiles we will turn these on by default.
and then Martin asked if WireGuard for site-to-site VPN. I mean, personal opinion is you should be using Peplink for site-to-site VPN. That's what SpeedFusion is for. But it is a client to the Peplink. So if you had a router like a Open Gear Open WRT router that had WireGuard on it, you could treat that as a site-to-site from a non-Peplink router into the Peplink router. But I would not recommend using this as site-to-site, as it SpeedFusion is far superior than WireGuard as far as site-to-site VPN is concerned. So the answer is I recommend Peplink for site-to-site. No, it's not a site-to-site specific. It's a remote user. However, there are routers that support WireGuard as a site-to-site, and you could connect those back in. So I'll leave that for but I would just say play and then provide feedback. Um, what is Peplink's definition of GA? General availability firmware is what we call. So GA is general availability. So we have release candidates, beta, and then we go to GA, which is our published stable releases. That's when you're going to see it available to basically everybody. So when we say GA firmware, we're saying general availability or published stable release.
Yeah, and a GA firmware goes through a full QC process that you wouldn't see on a beta firmware
Um,
necessarily as well. So there's
and a really interesting question from somebody that asked if this include SD-WAN? Peplink is SD-WAN. We were SD-WAN before everybody even called it SD-WAN. And so I will say that the idea of SpeedFusion is the ability to use multiple WANs at the same time. And so not only can we control inbound and outbound flows through multiple WAN interfaces at the same time, that's our load balancing algorithms or our outbound policies, which create that definition for SD-WAN. But our bonding technology, SpeedFusion, is incredibly powerful packet level bonding. So not only do we have SpeedFusion bonding site-to-site SD-WAN, we also have real multi-WAN load balancing with multiple algorithms that handle 8 different unique scenarios, creating a truly resilient SD-WAN solution, even for someone not needing bonding. And so yes, Peplink is an SD-WAN solution. Even though we don't really focus on that term, we focus on SpeedFusion and in control. By all the term and definitions of SD-WAN, we definitely meet that.
Yeah, and I think the question there he's getting at maybe the way another vendor does it. He's talking about looking at an individual link based on jitter and other metrics, and that's exactly what SpeedFusion is doing for you. We are hyper dynamically looking at every packet, every order of delivery, jitter, latency, success rate, all of those things, and very fine tuning, constantly fine tuning where those packets flow based on that. And so I think the implementation is going to look a lot different than how you would approach it with a traditional SD-WAN because they're really not able to do what we're able to do at that packet level, right? They don't have that dynamic weighted bonding capability, and that truly is unique, and that's proven over and over again with Royal Caribbean and other customers who are doing this. But Again, instead of looking at things from an individual link perspective, you should look at how you're constructing your SpeedFusion policies. So you've got a bonding policies for high throughput. You've got a WAN smoothing policy for mission critical, time sensitive applications. So there's different ways to use these tools, I think, to get to what he maybe is asking about there. But yeah, it's a very different approach and a much more powerful approach to SD-WAN at the end of the day.
Yeah. Um, Jim, you asked about IPv6. I have been begging for IPv6. Please put in a feature request. Um, maybe we can all pressure Travis to help us with that one. But I also want it, and it is no, it is not in this firmware yet. But it is on the roadmap and it is coming.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
trickling in. There's a lot of individual carrier level IPv6 compatibility
yeah,
features that we're putting in there, and so it is showing up in quiet little ways so far. But yeah, and a Presto everything's V6 is still an incremental game, I think, for now. But yeah, not saying no at all. We need more
it,
feedback on that and more feedback.
yeah, and it is, and you're right. I mean, like SA and stuff, we're adding IPv6 support slowly. But full on IPv6 is still in the roadmap.
Yes,
Can you install
definitely.
SpeedFusion Boost on your phone? No, you cannot. It does require Peplink hardware, which will go right into the next person's question. Is it is a point to point, so both your routers, your hub, and your spoke need to be running beta firmware, the 8.6 beta, in order for SpeedFusion Boost, and then you turn that on at the at that level. Patrick asked a really good question about how the bonding works with different latencies. So that's actually not really SpeedFusion Boost as much as it is dynamic weighted bonding. But dynamic weighted bonding gets improved in every firmware build as well as SpeedFusion Boost. So there's a couple different things related to that, around packet loss, latency, jitter, differences in capacity, the dynamic rate relationship between throughput variances. Like if I ran 10 speed tests at the, back to back, I might get 30 megs and 100 megs and 50 megs and 1.3 gigs or whatever it might be. And that variance is hard for SpeedFusion or for any like the VPN to catch up with. And so dynamic weighted bonding is constantly checking latency, jitter, packet loss, and it's dynamically adjusting how much each WAN can handle at the same time. And so we're constantly getting better at that. But SpeedFusion Boost is more of like an accelerator. And so it's outside of packet loss, jitter, or latency. It's actually improving that TCP throughput in a very unique and different way, and helps get that even faster than the published results. We've seen even better throughput on SpeedFusion Boost with just a single Starlink or a single 5G over a standard like an individual link might have or might even advertise. So it's just a different technology that we're really proud of. But dynamic weighted bonding actually answers that more specific question about latencies and jitter, and we're constantly evolving that to handle those different situations. Okay, we need
Yeah.
to get
And
back
there's
to.
and there's improvements to that dynamic weighted bonding in this firmware too. They're just not as massive as what we're seeing with SpeedFusion Boost. So we're always updating to improve that as well. I love Denny's question here. Does the SpeedFusion Boost feature have any downsides when it comes to stable latencies and jitter? We're running a remote video switcher and are very satisfied with the performance, even through 5G only. Don't want to mess this up. And I think that's exactly why we don't turn things on automatically for customers, right? Like it's working for him and we don't want to break that. And I don't think this will break it. I think it will probably result in even better performance, but that's for Denny to decide when to test and try it out.
But if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? In that scenario, if your mission is the whole idea is accomplishing the mission, and people, if they're
Yeah.
on sales talks with me, that's what I talk about. If the mission is working, this is specifically designed for missions where it's not working, and we're adding features and capabilities to make that better. And so,
Yep.
um, someone asked, July-ish. I'm assuming you mean GA release. No, I would assume a couple more weeks, and we'll have this as a GA. So I would assume by the end of the month, early June.
Yeah, I think there'll be one more beta There's still a couple more features I think that might show up. And then yeah, I think 2 or 4 weeks from there.
Another new feature we have brought out, radius over TLS, RadSec. So once again, just listening to customers and adding more features and security and capabilities to the environment. So now we have radius over TLS.
Yeah, we
That's now
see enterprise customers wanting to build out hotspots nationwide, globally, and radius itself isn't always great to run on the internet. And so there's updated standards and specs to do that so you can build really distributed hotspots, but not have, private links, a whole bunch of extra tunneling and extra wrappers to make that all secure. So you can just be much more efficient with that. But it's kind of a niche feature, but it enables really powerful deployments. So it's definitely something we see large enterprise customers really embracing.
Chris asked if SpeedFusion Boost will be enabled in SFC. Yes, when it's GA and it updates. So it'll SFC will be the last thing to be updated for that. And then SFC matches whatever settings you have on your tunnel. So whatever you create, SFC matches. So if you enable SpeedFusion Boost, SFC will also enable it, or like WAN smoothing or FSC. But it will be once it's GA, and then it'll go through a scheduled maintenance. So not like the day it's GA, but you'll see that roll out. This is huge and awesome. So native OneWeb support built right into InControl and Peplink, and this excites me because now we're adding more connections, right? We have Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Starlink, and now we have OneWeb. And with Amazon Leo coming out, I'm hoping we're gonna be able to show the same thing. But this is true API integration. So now you can have a Peplink router with a Starlink and a OneWeb and literally control them both. And I find what Peplink is doing here is amazing for visibility and centralized management. I tell people all the time, like, if you buy a Starlink, that's fine. Even if it's just Starlink, throw a B1 router there because you get so much visibility and control of that connection with the B1 router and your Starlink over the generic router that comes with it. And the ability to empower and get that centralized management of InControl, be able to see your IP address and radio settings and everything like that right inside the OneWeb is amazing. And I've ordered a OneWeb. I'm hoping to get it on the roof of our building, and I'll be doing a demo video with SpeedFusion Boost and OneWeb and Starlink and Amazon Leo. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. I was hoping to have it up and running by this morning, but it hasn't come yet. But we did order a OneWeb for our connectivity lab. But to turn this on, if we go back to our 580X router here, you're going to go to the network tab. You're going to go to WAN. And then you already saw it if you already saw it when it was loading. But right here, so I've got my Synergy controller, and then I've got my WAN. So now we've renamed it. Instead of Starlink WAN, it's now Orbit WAN, which is kind of cool, right? And that's a teaser into a future product. But we have the Orbit WAN, and we have our Starlink and our OneWeb. And so now we can enable Starlink on connections, and we can enable our OneWeb connections. So this is an incredible enhancement that Peplink's adding. As you can see, they're sort of starting to brand around this Orbit WAN. And as Amazon Leo and other providers come online, I'm hoping we'll see further adoption of this native WAN capability right into it. So
Yeah, we
super,
want it
super
to work
cool.
just like 5G, right? 4G, 5G, it doesn't matter which carrier. And obviously it's a little different with these constellations because they have their own terminals. It is a different experience in that sense. But to a network administrator, it doesn't have to be, right? They need it to report similar metrics. And yeah, that's what we're trying to get as many of these constellations in there as we can. Whoever's got something in orbit, we're going to add it to that section and put that integration in there.
And one thing really important here too is that this is brand new. Just like when Starlink first added, we added Starlink support. As we learn the APs, the APIs, and we work with OneWeb and their engineers, the goal is that we're going to be able to add more features and make it even more feature rich. So very similar to how we started with OneWeb, I think, or with Starlink. Now we're going to have that with OneWeb, and I think, every firmware we're going to see more features, capabilities around these LEO connections. Speaking of constantly improving, one of the biggest challenges that we have with Starlink is if you plug Starlink in and the Starlink doesn't have service, like it's in a building or it's not activated yet, it'll give you a false up. And so you can't, so if your default WAN 1 is your default priority 1 and you have cellulars in priority 2 and you plug a Starlink into WAN 1, the router will go offline because it sees the Starlink up and it sees that it has internet, because it sees that it passes that DNS health check, that DNS lookup. Peplink has fixed that, where if it discovers the Starlink WAN health check behavior, it'll actually check against public DNS now, and make sure that we're actually able to get on the internet appropriately for an out-of-box experience that is more stable. And this is really designed to improve that day zero connectivity, that out-of-box experience, before the router is configured, or if you do a factory reset and you've got that WAN and WAN 1, but Starlink isn't working, it's going to check against a public DNS resolver to make sure it can actually get to the internet. So the ability, once again, just improving that 0-day out-of-box experience.
Yeah, and I want to make a call out to that include public DNS servers checkbox. Like, just check that in general. Like that's going to
Yeah.
save you from outages. Like that's really good stuff, and people don't quite know what that does, but I'm gonna just make a guess, like half of my internet outages are just DNS servers that don't work. It's not really an outage, and if I just check that box, I can avoid that a lot of the time.
So the next thing that Peplink has improved on Starlink is WAN management only mode. So enabled WAN management only mode for Starlink, allowing networks to retain manageable even when bandwidth is restricted due to overage conditions. So once you go into a throttled condition with Starlink, you can still manage the router, but it won't push traffic over it, allowing you to get into the router. Because what happens is, like, especially like with any of them, this is not restricted to Starlink, but Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Starlink, if you get throttled, usually it's in the kilobits, like 256 kilobits or 512 kilobits. And in today's world, as much as that was awesome, having 512K in 1992 would have been awesome, it isn't now. And a lot of things won't even load with that little bandwidth. And so management only basically will restrict the traffic so that you can focus on managing the router and getting it back up and running, versus trying to manipulate the interfaces and get into the router while other users are still trying to use it. Okay. Improvements to eSIM support. Okay. So bring your own eSIM visibility is being improved. So you can see now it says BYO instead of just the E. So giving you a little better visibility into when you're bringing your own eSIM. And that improves in synergy mode. So now we're seeing those bring in, you can see that synergized WAN with the BYO, and we're able to see that traffic there. GSMA eSIM profile compatibility. We added support for newer GSMA eSIM profile formats, improved eSIM activation success, reduces installation failures, and expands on support for all carriers adopting newer eSIM standards. So just once again, constantly improving, constantly making things a little bit easier for you. You can also see the eSIM carrier name and display. So you see that AT&T there being highlighted on the screen. So just once again, just improving the reporting and what you're getting and making sure that we understand. Making your life easier is just super nice. Someone said they're unable to add eSIMs on a Wi-Fi WAN. That would not be Wi-Fi WAN, that'd be a firewall. So I've actually experienced this with remote routers, where I have like a router that's being tunneled back to like a hospital or a secure environment, and the eSIM is trying to reach out to the carrier network, the proxy for the carrier network. So it's basically, if you think about it, eSIM's got to talk to end control, and then the end control is proxying that over to the eSIM activation environment, which then talks to the carriers. We've had it with several of our hospital customers where the firewall is blocking that traffic. So with Wi-Fi WAN, I would expect that that is what you're experiencing. The firewall of that WAN is blocking the activation process. And I've seen this on numerous occasions now. But I have activated via Wi-Fi WAN, and it does work. It's simply either a firewall or a configuration thing. So when you're doing eSIMs, a couple of tips that we've learned. One, eSIM needs to be active. So like we'll turn on PEP eSIM, even if you're not paying for PEP eSIM, we'll turn it on and then push the eSIM. That seems to work really well. If it still doesn't work, most likely there's a firewall blocking the ability for the eSIM controller to talk to the carrier network to download that profile. Someone asked about Google Fi. I don't know. We would have to test. But most likely, I would assume that some of those improvements to GSMA. So if anybody has Google Fi and wants to test that, that would be pretty cool to test an eSIM there.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I've tested the physical SIMs and it definitely works. But I have not tested Google Fi specifically. I go more T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon type setup there. eSIMs does require IC2. A lot of these cloud services need a cloud broker, and IC2 is a perfect platform for that. So rather than having a bunch of different platforms, IC2 becomes that platform. We've had this request numerous times related to Starlink integration, OneWeb integration, eSIM integration, SIM pool management. We need something to broker those connections, manage those APIs and those JSON queries. In control is a great way to do that. And so, the Peplink doesn't charge any more for that. I mean, it's my personal opinion as a provider. I find it really neat that Peplink is just constantly increasing the value proposition of in control versus other SIP platforms that I've seen that basically charge you a license fee for every single little thing you want to do. But a lot of these things are tied into in control because it simplifies stability deployment. I mean, like I said, these brokerings for the eSIMs and stuff, being able to pull that in, it just makes it really nice and convenient running that through in control. Travis might have an official response to that, but that's what I understand as the response from a non-Peplink standpoint.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And, technically we could still use a cloud broker from the device level, relaying it up that way, but it basically just creates a new pathway outside of IC2. And so, yeah, of course we could probably do it, but we still have to run that centralized cloud broker anyways. And so for a lot of reasons, it's through IC2, and I don't see that changing.
Somebody asked if Starlink and OneWeb can be configured on the same WAN interface. I don't understand completely what you're asking, but if you're using VLAN as WAN and then using the WAN interface, yes. So you could have two VLANs, one for Starlink and one for OneWeb, and then trunking that through a WAN switch connected to your WAN. If you had a physical Starlink plugged in directly to a WAN, I don't understand how you would have Starlink and OneWeb at the same exact time outside of that. But using VLAN as WAN, yes, you would be able to do that through the same WAN interface. Wi-Fi metered networks. We've now added the ability to notate that Wi-Fi networks are metered connections. This is optimizing for data usage. This is mostly related, if you have your Wi-Fi on your hotspot on your cell phone. So if you turn on Wi-Fi on your cell phone, that's technically a metered connection. And so it's just gonna, optimize data usage, reducing background traffic updates and cloud services. So it's just gonna help reduce load on that Wi-Fi network. So really good if you're using like a Wi-Fi tether. So just adding that to your network. We've extended AP controller support to support 6 gigahertz. Have you seen the announcement of the AP1 Enterprise? I'm sorry about that. The AP1 Enterprise with the Wi-Fi 7 supports 6 gigahertz, and so they've brought that into in control, and now they've brought that into the Wi-Fi controller. And so you can see the AP controller has been extended to support 6 gigahertz now. Per WAN bandwidth limiting. This has been weirdly requested and not requested. I've had not like a tons of requests for it, but the requests that we have had have been incredibly useful requests where the scenario needs this per WAN bandwidth limiting. And so it's neat to see here. There are scenarios where you are paid that where a carrier can charge you for capacity, and you might not want to pay for that capacity unless you absolutely need it. So you can set the bandwidth of your interface, of the WAN interface, and then actually throttle it to that limit. So this actually helps with a couple things though that I can see beyond carrier restrictions. A lot of times, as you push the limits of your bandwidth, latency will spike. If you have a mission critical technology or connection that requires incredibly low bandwidth and low latency, by throttling the maximum usable throughput, you can basically offset those spikes in latency. So if I know that my internet's only getting 10 megabits by 10 megabits, why have SpeedFusion try to push 11 megs over a 10 meg circuit, right? So I can say, hey, this is a 10 meg circuit, throttle me to 10 megs. Now, SpeedFusion or even WAN, the WAN traffic isn't going to push more than 10 megs over that. Therefore, you're not going to have to worry about those latency spikes that you might see on unrestricted, where the router thinks it's a gigabit, but the throughput is actually only 10 megabits. And so it's a great way to optimize Starlink and reduce latency spikes because of bandwidth consumption. So there's a cost thing here, and there's also a optimization and performance. So you can, and right there you can see independent controlled, optimized traffic distribution, reduces bandwidth costs on premium or metered connections, and ensures reliability of performance of mission critical applications across all network paths. So just another way to control how your internet is being used.
Yeah, I'd say that's a very fine-tuned setting. And, for certain deployments, it's a really big deal. And it's just another one of those layers of control that we've added through years of working with customers and seeing, where these little problems show up. But yeah, most customers, you may not need that or use that, but
Yeah.
it's definitely useful.
Somebody asked if SpeedFusion could be installed as a standalone app on a Windows desktop. Yes and no. So technically, you can install a Fusion Hub solo as a VM on your laptop, and then make the LAN of the Fusion Hub your LAN of your laptop, and then the WAN of the Fusion Hub, whatever interface you want, and then voila, now you have a SpeedFusion app. That doesn't bond though; it's going to be just a VPN. We do have the SpeedFusion app for Android and iOS, and I would hope that Peplink will see that that's a really neat feature and offer it on Mac and Windows as well. But right now, there is no SpeedFusion specific app for Windows. A really cool feature that actually, funny enough, right before this was announced, I had a troubleshooting call with a customer. So I don't know if this was created because of that troubleshooting call, but we had a troubleshooting call with a customer who had a BR2 and they wanted jumbo frame support on the LAN. And so now we have added jumbo frame support to the BR2 platform, the BR1 platform. So this is really good if you need those jumbo frame. But if you're also trying to use layer 2 SpeedFusion with jumbo frame support and need to be able to push that out on a BR1 or BR2, you can now do MTU 9000 up to MTU 9000 on these devices, and even trunk that over SpeedFusion layer 2 tunnels. So really cool. Other improvements just to be noted, Balance 1350 now supports up to 1,000 peers. Once again, no licensing, no extra cost. Peplink just updated it, which is pretty cool, I think. We added support for triggered factory reset via GPIO, enabling faster hardware-based recovery without the needing for web or console access. We also added PPSK, private pre-shared key name display in the wireless client list, enabling admins to identify which passphrases each client used for improved visibility, faster troubleshooting, and better security management, multi-PPSK in networks. So just a little extra bonus features. But once again, there are 30 pages on that release note, and I expect with beta 3 there to be 31 pages of notes or more. So
Yeah.
if you, yeah, I mean, so read those notes, especially if you've got a large deployment, and don't just push it out. I've had so many customers go, oh, SpeedFusion Boost, boom, let me push this to all my sites. Um, all these technologies have pros and cons to them. Check it first, test what you're doing. Don't just push it to all of your sites. Set up a lab, make sure your applications work effectively, and make sure it's working for your needs before just pushing it out. And if you, and I love the way Denny or whoever it was that said it earlier, but they like, hey, if mine works great with my 5G, then leave it alone, right?
Yep.
This is designed to solve problems. If you're not having a problem that needs to be solved, don't add additional CPU and memory load that might actually hurt you in what you're trying to accomplish.
But yeah, go test it and see what it does in the background and not in your production thing. And yeah. I think on the release notes too, like you and I were talking right before we got on here, like there's a really big feature that I don't think is very well covered so far yet, and that's with synergy mode, the access points now show up.
Yeah, that
And
didn't show up on my, but yeah, let me go ahead and show it. So with synergy mode, one of the cool features is one of the things is if you're synergizing 3 BR1 Pros, that's technically 3 wireless access points. You could actually put those around your coverage area and not only have distributed cellular capability, but also use those BR1s as Wi-Fi access points now. So you can go to access point, and we actually did this just before this call because we wanted to see it. Turned on the AP controller, permit any, and then we went to access point. Now this is a 580X. There's no wireless access points on a 580X. And you can see there are my 3 BR1 Pros and the access points. So I can actually create an SSID on this 580X, push that out, and now I can have my Wi-Fi LAN span across synergy mode. This is currently not available in control. It's only available on the access controller here, but super cool. And the ability to extend, to just further enhance synergy mode to support better connectivity. And I actually like this a lot because I install BR1s on the roof of vehicles all the time, and then they're asking
yeah.
they're asking for outside Wi-Fi, and I'm synergizing these BR1s, and then I have to install a Wi-Fi AP outside, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool because now I'd be like, yes. So now I have to rethink how I do my installs, where like I'll install a BR1 on the corner of each vehicle, and that way I've got like north, south, east, west Wi-Fi coverage using synergy mode. So I'm gonna have to change how I do my deployments.
Yeah, and honestly,
Um,
this is guaranteeing I'm going to be reconfiguring my network to use the AP controller now.
oh,
Because
100%.
and and the AP controller actually is in the background, it does enable faster roaming even than if you use pure IC2. So there's more behind the under the hood with that, but yeah, it's
And you can manage AP controller Wi-Fi settings from in control. So
yeah,
if you
yeah.
go, so you turn on the AP controller, manage your APs on the AP controller, then in control apply SSIDs to AP controllers, and so you can still centrally manage your Wi-Fi settings
Yeah.
to the AP controller. So you can take advantage of this technology and still keep in control management. Super cool.
That, that's a really great point because that really gives you the power of both, right? You get
Yep.
that true tag-based, centralized, like streamlined scalability, but that local power of the controller. Yeah.
And then somebody asked just now about MAC addresses. So if you go to network settings, grouped MAC addresses, this isn't really related to 8.6 firmware, but you can actually create a group of MAC addresses and then apply that to outbound policies and firewall policies and security policies. So we do have grouped MAC addresses. So for example, you could create a group of company laptops here, and then you can create a grouped network, which is your company's servers, and you can create a firewall rule that says allow company laptops to talk to company servers, deny anything else from talking to company servers. And so we do have grouped MAC addresses, just to answer somebody that had asked that question about MAC addresses.
Yeah, and we had a question about will the AP controller work on Peplink routers that don't have Wi-Fi built in? And the answer is yes. Every Peplink router, even if it's
Yep.
Ethernet only, has the AP controller feature. So you can still
Yeah.
plug,
So
Ethernet-based Wi-Fi APs into that and manage them.
yeah, like this is a 580X right here. So
Yeah, yeah.
the 580X comes with an AP control. I mean, the whole point of the AP controller is to control APs on the LAN, right? So we have the AP controller, the switch controller. So we've got customers that are incredibly security conscious that want no cloud. They can buy Peplink ecosystem and have APs, switches, routers, and then just log into the router and manage all of their switches, their APs, and everything right from one pane of glass. What's really cool with the switch controller, if you turn that on, if you create a VLAN in your network settings here, it creates the VLAN on all the switches. So kind of a neat, it's just kind of neat that it all just ties right into the router environment. So um, I love how many questions there were today. And if we did not answer your question, there are a ton. You can reach out to Travis at peplink.com or Peter at westnetworks.com. We'd be more than happy to answer your questions. If we not directly answer your question, we might have just needed to not. That might have been too big of a sidebar for the topic. But please, that doesn't mean we don't want to answer your question. So if we did not get to your question, please email us, Travis at peplink.com or Peter at westnetworks.com, and we'd be more than happy to help you. If you want to play with this firmware, go to in control and download that firmware, or go to peplink.com, go to support, and then click open beta, and then you can download the firmware to your devices. And Travis, once again, thank you so much. Truly
Yeah.
appreciate your dedication and time on this, and just another, allowing us to share with the Peplink community all these amazing features. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. It's always a pleasure to be able to tell the story of Peplink with you. And yeah, it's always a fun time.